You've probably seen the word inflation pop up everywhere in the past few years.
No matter how you slice it, the latest inflation numbers today are not good.
Inflation now at the highest level since 1982.
Inflation continues to weigh heavily on Americans.
But what does inflation mean, and why does it matter? To put it simply, inflation happens when the price of goods and services rises. It can be measured a few different ways, but the most widely known measure is the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. The CPI is calculated based on the change in prices over time for a group of about 94,000 common products and services. So what causes inflation? There are generally three main drivers. The first is when demand for goods and services exceeds supply. Another is when increased costs for raw materials or labor make it more expensive to produce goods, leading to higher prices for consumers. The last driver is when workers seek higher wages in order to keep up with the rising cost of living, which in turn can drive prices higher. All three of these drivers have contributed to price increases in the COVID era. While inflation slowed somewhat in 2022, by the end of that year, prices were roughly 14% higher than before the pandemic. The pandemic caused two key issues: production and supply chain problems, which meant fewer available goods. At the same time, demand for goods grew, partly due to federal and state governments offering pandemic aid to households and businesses. Wage growth has also been a factor. A tight labor market during the COVID recovery has given workers greater bargaining power, putting upward pressure on prices. So what does this mean for Californians? Inflation affects consumers as well as businesses. And while higher prices have affected all Californians in some way, low-wage earners feel higher prices more severely because they spend a bigger share of their earnings on essentials. Furthermore, inflation has eaten into recent wage gains since higher earnings don't go as far in a world of rising prices. Government efforts can help reduce inflation. Chief among these is raising interest rates, which curbs consumer and business spending by discouraging borrowing and investment. However, higher interest rates run the risk of cooling the economy too fast and triggering higher unemployment and even a recession. Striking this balance is a critical task for government. Policymakers must seek out ways to tame inflation while addressing its impact on workers, businesses, and families.